Next, we have the first of our two Marks for this evening, Mark Belair. Mark is a New York City-based drummer and percussionist who has recorded with jazz greats Bill Evans and Joe Lovano. He has also performed with the New York Philharmonic and the Boston Symphony Orchestra. His show credits include the original off-Broadway production of A Little Shop of Horrors and the Broadway production of Les Mis. His poems have appeared or are forthcoming in numerous journals, including The Distillery, Harvard Review, Michigan Quarterly Review, Mudfish, Slipstream, the South Carolina Review, and The Sun. His poem, The Word, has been nominated for a 2008 Pushcart Prize. Mark will be reading from a developing collection of poems called Walk With Me. Please welcome to our stage, Mark Belair.
I have to do the same bit with the microphone, just bear with me a second. This is the challenging part. See, I can't see what I'm doing.
That's it.
Is that it? You got it?
Beautiful.
From here on, it's easy. Thank you all for coming. Geez, it's terrific. It's the time of day where it's hard to get. You had made a point to come here, and we appreciate it. As Andy said, I'm going to read from a developing collection called Walk With Me. And Walk With Me is divided into a number of sections, and I'm going to read two poems from a section called Walk With Me Around the Countryside. And this poem is called The Word. The Ferris wheel, after furnishing a grand ride, stops with you at the top and starts to let riders off. Drop, stop, swing a bit. Seat by numbered silver seat. And you try to savor each remaining vista. I can still see the car wash. I can still see Kelly's farm. Your allegiance true to heights, each step of the faded way down. You rocking your seat as much as you dare while you still have the chance until it's nearly your turn. And you start to feel the pull of the big warm earth and hear the indifferent gears of the Ferris wheel. And reorienting, notice how the process of getting off is undertaken. Then the thick-nicked metal bar gets swung open by a slightly scary carny, and you step out and plant your feet on the wooden ramp. Then steps later, on the solid crust of home ground. The familiar place the ride, it seems, only just began. And though you're only 7 years old, the whole circular event feels like some weird premonition. Except you don't know that word yet. So don't know what it was you just felt, what just happened. Next one is called The Pond. Morning fog rises off a pond, into which I toss a stone and hear a minor, invisible splash. The stone's last sound, like news of the death of someone you never met. The stone tumbles, I dream. As it falls in slow motion through the dense cold, the water new to it, disorienting, the journey one way. The silt at the bottom that gently catches it, poof. Once stones too. Once part of a hill that soldiers died on, that farmers cursed, that children still tumble down toward the pond, disoriented, giddy. Just a comment about the first poem. I was walking down, it was in Chelsea, like maybe 9th Avenue, and I saw this, just, one of those little street fairs, and they had these little tiny rides that when they're done, they fold them up and just haul them away. But that gave me the prompt for this poem, and I just went home and wrote it and basically invented everything. And then I got an email from a childhood friend whom I'd only seen once as an adult, and she had run across the poem on my website, said she enjoyed it, and she said, this is in Connecticut. She said, what's amazing? The Goshen the Goshen Fair is still there. They still have that huge Ferris wheel, and from the top, you can still see Kelly's farm. So what I thought I was inventing was some kind of recovered memory. Anyway, the next section I'm going to read from is, I'm going to read one poem from a section called Walk With Me at the Edges of the Suburbs, and this is called Suburbanization. Mike would dig out his heavy, sluggish cock and piss on his farm callous hands to warm them up. Then go back to then go back to pulling scallions for someone's salad out of the hard October ground. With a dirt-encrusted finger pressed to the side of his repeatedly broken nose, Mike would shoot out a gob of stringy snot, wipe his hands on his crusty overalls, then pay us, counting out sweat-dampened bills. On the road to market, riding atop stacked vegetable crates in the bay of the jolting pickup, we boys threw tomatoes at passing mailboxes, thinking ourselves bad. Until one day Mike, riding shotgun in the cab, the loaded gun lying across his arm like the arm of a skinny lover, blew one off its post. Mike called dynamite Dynamike. He couldn't read or write. So we boys called him that behind his back in honor of everything that exploded from him. Then the farm got sold out from under Mike, just a tenant, to build the suburban houses that stand there now. A few weeks later, Mike, too young to retire but not fit for anything else, left on my family's doorstep a fruit basket, store-bought and wrapped in yellow cellophane. "Thank you," the printed card read. Below it sat a childishly large, drunkenly uncertain letter X. The details in this one are all true, which gives you another reason to wash your vegetables. This section, I'm going to read two poems from, yeah, this is all true. I was there. And a kid. These are two poems from the section called Walk With Me Into the Country of the Past. And the first one is called Fakers. I woke when the car stopped, but fake sleep, so my father would carry me into the house. "He's faking," my big sister, having to walk because no faker herself, crankily complained. But my father, not listening, carried me in anyway. Faking he didn't know I was faking, because he liked to carry his boy. We two fakers, hugging each other for real. This next one is called All I Knew, and it's actually kind of a prose poem. There's no punctuation in it, it's just slashes to demarcate stresses. So you might almost think of it as a little tiny short story. All I Knew. My grandfather, Hervé, was a society drummer in Hartford, Connecticut in the late 1920s. I have a glossy photograph of him with Emil Heimberger and his Hotel Bond Orchestra. The seated men, posing with their instruments, stare at the camera lens, dressed in identical tuxedos that throw the individuality of their faces into stark relief. This one with fat cheeks, that one jug-eared looking just off the farm, another with absurdly wavy hair. Hervé at the center sits behind a bass drum with a waterfall painted on its front. He's comfortable with himself, at home behind his drums, his chin cleft, his smile wry. After his death in a 4th of July car crash at age 24, my grandmother Eva was inconsolable and remained so until, in her early 50s, she died of breast cancer. My father, too at the time of Hervé's death, has only one memory of him, of climbing upstairs to bed while Hervé kissed him goodnight between each handrail post. My father did not become a drummer, I did. In one concert, I played in a recreation of the Paul Whiteman Orchestra using the original orchestra charts. At the first rehearsal, during Sweet Sue, Just You, or maybe Coquette, I had a sudden recollection, so long forgotten as to feel like a visitation. I had been told as a boy that Hervé had filled in one night with the Paul Whiteman Orchestra when, passing through Hartford, their regular drummer took ill. It was, the story went, the highlight of his budding career and a sign of glories to come. Now I was reading from the same drum part he once did. Had he too chosen to put a tom-tom fill here, or to stress the backbeat there, or to add choke cymbal accents throughout? Had he too held back in the penultimate verse to better drive home the last? In short, had he and I at nearly the same age made the same story from the same part? Then I wondered, were we all creating a story none of us knew we were collaborating on? Did my father choose life insurance as his vocation to help others through the kind of loss that had left his young mother bereft? And did I choose drumming to resurrect the hopes that with my grandfather had died? But why? For I never knew Hervé. All I knew were the stories. The next poem is from a section called Walk With Me Over Difficult Terrain. It's called The Nickel Factory. In Boston, at 18, my faith collapsed and left me free-falling. Snowy nights, I often walked alone over the Charles River Bridge into Cambridge, the water below cold and seductive. Looking back, the lights of Boston appeared as something from within, remote, vivid, unreal. I would then wander past the old nickel candy factory, the sweet, sick aroma of flavored sugar settling over me, clinging to me for blocks. And I, unsettled, tumbling in my fall, waiting as in a dream for the crash that wouldn't come, clung to that smell, to its sure reality, to its simple presence as evidence of my own. Like a cartoon character grabbing a twig jutting off the face of a rock cliff, just before he looks at you and the twig snapping drops out of frame. We read, the final two poems are from the section Walk With Me by Our Pond. And the first one is called Floating Leaves. Pork chops and pearl onions simmer in a skillet after love in a bunk bed, snug under covers, the lake cabin chilly off-season. The last pick of summer squash steams in a pot. Bakery bread falls in slices. Too young to buy wine, we clink chipped mugs of farm stand apple cider. Hungry from love, we peek under pot lids, then clinking them too accidentally, laugh in the stove steam, kiss in its haze, while outside a fall wind twirls leaves to the lake, where they float on the skin of its darkness. We settle to late lunch in mismatched chairs, and talk quietly of our unmourned-for high school years, and of leaving next week for college. Dictionaries and toaster ovens, boots and bus schedules, and more carefully of how maturity demands we be open to new friends and interests during our forced separation. A lonely church bell tolls from across the lake, and as if scolded for our insincerity, we fall silent, letting the solemn peal declare what we dare not ask of each other, the promise, come what may, of love. Then the space heater, sparking blue, blows a fuse, and we search for a spare in drawers filled with bent spatulas, linty pacifiers, flat tubes of glue, busted toy guns. It's important if her parents ever found out we used the family cabin. But from a tangle of rubber bands, a new fuse peers out like a cold alien eye, and giddy with relief we retrieve our power, those spooks set to washing dishes, tying up garbage, smoothing blankets, plumping pillows, reaching across each other, touching and bumping until it's too late. Our hands shift purposes, the couch colder than the bunk bed, but anywhere will do in our haste, a fumbling haste unable to wait for birth control, so trusting rhythm. Then a tugging on of jeans in a hurry to final tasks, setting keys back in the bird feeder, loading the old borrowed car. A pause for one last, delicate, luxurious kiss. Then, turning the car engine, worry at the sun dipping low. We can't drive yet after dark. And the last poem is called The V. Always skinny, one morning you couldn't button the top of your jeans. The zipper wouldn't go the final inch, instead leaving a little V of belly, where the stamped brass button fell short of its rightful place. Forlorn button and buttonhole curling gently toward me. And our baby, starting to claim its own space, became staggeringly real. From that humble start, our boys grew one by one to occupy your body, then our entire life, leaving us in their aftermath, overwhelmed, buoyed, wrung out, amused, overjoyed, leaving each of us and us together, staggered but real. Thank you.